You're watching the Piedmont News Channel.
The woman often called the mother of the civil rights movement is in the Piedmont tonight.
It's a rare moment in history, and it's like being heaven on earth.
A witness for the prosecution testifies about killer dreams and O.J. Simpson.
I would not have the blood of Nicole on Ron's ship.
And look what rescue teams found in the rubble 14 days after Kobe's devastating earthquake.
Now, an 11-minute look at tonight's top stories and tomorrow's forecast. This is the Piedmont News Channel's 11 at 11.
A movement that started 40 years ago and changed the course of history continues tonight in the Piedmont with a visit from the mother of the civil rights movement. Good evening, I'm Cynthia Smoot.
And I'm Neil McNeil. Rosa Parks visited the Piedmont today to celebrate part of the movement she started, and the celebration is what's happening tonight. The Greensboro sit-in movement honored Parks this evening. She got the Alston Jones International Civil and Human Rights Award. Back in 1955, Ms. Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. That started a wave that redirected the course of history for African Americans. But she wasn't just getting an award tonight. As Kent Bates tells us, she was here to carry on the civil rights movement.
Mrs. Rosa Parks is considered a heroine to many people. That's why the city's honored that she had joined in the celebration for the part Greensboro played in the civil rights movement 35 years ago. That's when 4 African-American students started what turned into a sit-in in this Woolworths. The action of the 4 turned into 400 within a week. Rosa Parks sat at the lunch counter this morning with one of the first men in that sit-in.
It's a rare moment in history, and it's like being heaven on earth.
It wasn't heaven on earth when Blair and the others staged the sit-in in the Woolworths, but now they too are honored for their fight for their rights. Mrs. Parks says conditions have improved since the time in 1955 that she refused to give up her seat on the bus, and in 1960 when the students staged a sit-in in the Woolworths in Greensboro. She just hopes events like this will stay fresh on the minds of today's youth, so they can continue a fight she says is not over.
Look to the future, that we will even go further into the freedom and equality and peace.
She represents hope for the children of our age, the leaders of the 21st century. I'm so happy that many of the children were able to see her today, and many of the adults here who touched her will carry this message back to their children.
He says taking the message to the children is the only way the true fight for equality will continue. In Greensboro, Kent Bates, the Piedmont News Channel.
The Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. now has a part of the lunch counter from the Greensboro Woolworths on display.
An 18-year-old is in jail tonight for the murder of a teenager in Greensboro, and police are looking for his alleged partner. Topping news around the Piedmont tonight, the young man you see here, Bert Thong Phoon Phim, is charged with first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. Police say he and another teenager robbed 2 teens last Thursday at a car wash in Greensboro, then shot them. 17-year-old Keith McClintock was killed. His friend was lucky to survive. McClintock's mother spoke to us after court today.
They don't need to let that man out. It's unfair what he's done to my son. He destroyed my son. But see, he destroyed my life. My life is never going to be the same.
Police from High Point to Greensboro to Eden in Rockingham County are all on the lookout for that second suspect. 16-year-old Ronte Hayes escaped from the Guilford County Detention Center in December, where he was awaiting trial for allegedly shooting 2 students at High Point Central High back in November of '93. A federal appeals court has upheld the multiple convictions of a former Winston-Salem alderman and a political consultant who extorted thousands of dollars from businesses. You may remember this case grew out of an investigation the FBI called Operation Mushroom Cloud. Back in 1992, a federal court sentenced consultant Rodney Sumler to 70 months in prison. Prosecutors considered him the mastermind of a scheme to extort money out of businesses for political favors. And this man, former Alderman Patrick Hairston, got a 41-month sentence. Community volunteer Felipe Mack, you see her there, got a 10-month term. Hairston and Sumler appealed. The Court of Appeals reversed Sumler's perjury conviction, and it threw out 3 counts against both men because they stem from the same offenses as the other convictions, but the court upheld the remaining 28 counts.
A witness for the prosecution dropped quite a bombshell in the double murder trial of O.J. Simpson today. Around America Tonight, we go back out to Los Angeles, where jurors heard from only one witness today, but that witness told them about a shocking conversation he had with Simpson the day after the murders of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. Ron Shipp took the stand. He's a former police officer and says he's a close friend of O.J.'s.
He kind of jokingly just said, you know, to be honest, Shipp, that's what he called me, Shipp, said I've had some dreams of killing her.
Well, during cross-examination, Simpson's lawyers tried to portray Shipp as a liar who only wanted to get attention. Shipp did admit he was more like a servant to Simpson than a friend, and that he did once have a drinking problem, but he never wavered from his claim that Simpson told him about having dreams of killing Nicole. Fire has destroyed a carpet plant in Georgia, but the owners are vowing to rebuild. That plant's in the town of LaGrange, which is southwest of Atlanta near the Alabama border. Firefighters are still there tonight watching hotspots. Earlier today, you could see smoke for miles. About 700 people worked at the plant. Equipment failure has delayed the launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery. The navigation system on the craft's not working right, so NASA's pushed the launch back to early Friday. The mission calls for Discovery to rendezvous with the Russian space station Mir.
Hundreds of Cuban refugees arrived at the U.S. Navy base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and they're not happy. Around the world tonight, on a daily basis, the U.S. plans to transfer refugees from U.S. camps in Panama to Guantanamo Bay. Panama agreed to house some of those refugees last year, but then after that riot in December in the camps, Panama gave the U.S. until next month to move the refugees out. Well, people in Europe say they're fighting a losing battle with Mother Nature. The rivers continue to flood, and thousands of people are fleeing their homes. In fact, in Holland alone, 250,000 people are leaving, making it the biggest exodus in Dutch history. Soldiers there, in the meantime, are working around the clock to reinforce the dikes weakened by the flooding. In Africa, it's a flood of pink and white flamingos. 3 million of them have started migrating to their traditional feeding ground in Kenya. The sea of pink and white virtually blocks out the water. And a small miracle comes out of that quake-devastated city of Kobe, Japan. 14 days after the quake, rescuers found this dog alive in all that rubble. It had been buried underneath
You're watching the Piedmont News Channel.
We prepare kids for college.
There's a lot more to the Oak Ridge Military Academy than marching and saluting. We'll see why the school is a highly respected college prep institution. Then,
just another day. Another good day to work.
We'll visit a family business where they labor on Labor Day. It's a true team effort, and holiday or not, it's a way to put food on the table. Plus,
it's official. Cal Ripken has now played in 2,129 consecutive games.
They're preparing a blowout in Baltimore as Rip closes in on the Iron Horses record.
Now, tonight's top stories and Van Denton's 3-degree guarantee. This is the 10 o'clock news.
Well, the eyes that were on Shannon Faulkner have turned north, and they've settled on Nancy Millette. Good evening, everyone. I'm Neil McNeil.
I'm Cynthia Smoot. Millette is the Oak Ridge Military Academy cadet who wants to pick up where Faulkner left off, trying to become the first woman to graduate from the all-male Citadel Military College in South Carolina. Bob Buckley joins us now live from Oak Ridge Military Academy, which is just outside Greensboro. Bob, many similarities between the two schools.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, the Citadel's main function is to be a liberal arts university that uses some military